Today on Rebel Then King, we are building out an adventuring party using only summoners. Welcome, adventurers. If you haven't seen my recent Oops All Thaumaturge video, yes, I have a mustache right now. It was for a costume contest, and I am probably going to shave it off tomorrow morning, but let me know what you think. It might come back at some point. Now, the Summoner is a class that admittedly I'm not a huge fan of. I don't really like playing as two characters. I much prefer focusing on one. I don't like the fact that you're, on one hand, have way more actions, but on the other hand, you don't, because you have to keep splitting your actions, and sometimes you don't fully get to do what you want to do with either of the characters. It's not my personal playstyle, and therefore I haven't spent much time with this class. But that being said, as I built out an adventuring party, I learned more about it, and I do think it, of course, has some great mechanical advantages and good roleplay possibilities. So let's dive in, starting with my hammer. Now, I went with a goblin who is a hounded thief, which I think I did in my thaumaturge video as well. Sorry about that. I did go with the Razortooth Ancestry feat to grant a D6 Jaws attack, and I went with Goblin Scuttle to get some repositioning as a reaction. This is going to be important for this upfront build. The background is a hounded thief, gives us the pickpocket feat, and it's just so goblin-like. As far as the spells, because remember, a summoner is a spellcaster here. I'm sorry, I skipped ability scores. Maxing out Dex as much as I can with +3. It is a full max charisma and some strength to help out my attacks. I want my AC and attacks to be about the best that I can for this upfront, still spellcasting build. For the spells, I did go with shield, since you're going to be in the front line, telekinetic projectile so that you have a ranged option, and then some kind of exploration and other cantrips. I also did go with Runic Body to help out your Jaws attack, and Soothe because everyone is going to kind of contribute in multiple ways in this party. Now let's talk about the eidolon, because that is what makes the summoner a summoner after all. I chose the Anger Phantom Eidolon because it has kind of its own version of Vicious Swing, which is actually called Furious Strike. You're going to deal an extra damage die and a +1 bonus to your damage with this strike. It is much like Vicious Swing. It is a 2-action for 1 attack. It increases the multiple attack penalty by 2. So it is kind of your big one shot in each round. For the evolution feat, another way to kind of modify your eidolon, I went with Advanced Weaponry. You get to add versatile damage type to some of your strikes. This is important because as an upfront build, as your main damage dealer in the party, you don't want to be stymied by a resistance to your primary strikes. If you've got versatile strikes, though, it is not a problem. As far as the skills go, not too many in this build, but Thievery and Stealth to go with that dexterity, and of course with your pickpocket abilities. This character is going to be supported by the Anvil, which is a halfling, a plant-loving, helpful halfling. It is a wildwood halfling, which is mostly for flavor, though you do get to ignore some difficult terrain as part of it, and then halfling lore, because, well, extra lore is always good. The background is an herbalist that grants natural medicine, which can give a bonus to treat wounds checks in nature. This is important. The ability scores, again, maximum charisma, secondary max wisdom. We're going to be healing with this character, so we want wisdom. And then some dexterity because, well, armor class. Spells. Okay, I went with Take Root, which is something that can aid the front line. You're kind of helping to fasten them to the ground in a way. Stabilize. You're going to be the healer. I do like Stabilize a lot for towards the end of an encounter. If you know you're going to be all right, someone has gone down, rather than using a precious resource to, heal them, bring them back up, and then just combat ends and you treat wounds anyway, you can stabilize so you don't have to worry about them at least. And then you kind of finish the encounter, and the equivalent of, 12 seconds later, you come back and you administer treat wounds and bring them back up. Timber. Thematic area of effect cantrip. It's a very fun cantrip. Puff of Poison, I think, is also thematic, and it's good for getting out of a bad situation. And then Needle Darts would kind of be your go-to attack. It's got a good high floor of damage for cantrip. As far as your spells from your spell slots, Runic Body to cast on that Anvil, and Heal, well, because you're the healer. The Eidolon. You are going with the plant Eidolon, of course, because this Eidolon can attack, but also perform athletics checks, disarm, shove, trip with reach. That is going to be fantastic for an Anvil build. You've got reach, which means you can set up flanks from anywhere. You've got these ranged shove trip abilities, so you can stay at a safe distance, trip a creature, and then let that hammer, double hammer summoner build lay in a bunch of damage. For the evolution feat, I went with Expanded Senses because that's great for exploration. And then as skills go, wisdom-based, medicine, nature, survival. Remember, +6 is pretty good on your nature and medicine, but due to the herbalist background, if you are out in nature, that would actually be a +8, which is fantastic. Moving on to one of sort of two cannons I have here. This one is a lot of fun. This is a whimsical caster blaster fae. So it is a gnome because they're, fae adjacent creatures. The heritage is the Wellspring Gnome, which grants you an extra cantrip, and the ancestry feat, First World Magic for yet another cantrip. The background, I went with merchant, mostly for flavor. You're kind of a traveling merchant who sells magical fae-related trinkets and things. But you do gain the mercantile lore skill, and you gain bargain hunter skill feat. So kind of good for, being in town and replenishing your supplies, I suppose. Ability scores here, max charisma. Secondary max con, kind of fun. Gnomes have a boosted constitution, which is something I like about gnomes a lot. And then some dex, as always. Spells. All of the attack cantrips. I like doing this for blaster casters. You basically make sure you have the best attack cantrip for every possibility and know which one to use all of the time. You can target all physical damage types with telekinetic projectile. So if you're fighting something that is resistant or even immune to slashing and piercing, well, you can bludgeon it from range with telekinetic projectile. You can do your kind of default high average single target damage with needle darts. If you detect a fire weakness, ignition. Electric Arc and Scatter Scree are good for multiple targets. Vitality Lash against the undead. Void Warp to do some debuffing. And then I do have Rousing Splash as well for a bit of team support. As far as spells from your spell slots go, Chilling Spray to target cold weakness, because we didn't have that in any of our cantrips. And then Heal for even more team support. The Eidolon. Guess what? If we go with the Fey Eidolon here, it grants even more cantrips. This is ridiculous. So Caustic Blast for grouped enemies and Slashing Gust for spread out enemies. You can do so many types of damage. You have the best. You also, I should say, have a mixture of save-based and attack and single target, multiple target. Know which cantrip to use and you will be very effective with this build. As far as the evolution feat for this particular build, go with Energy Heart. You choose an element. I would say maybe cold, since you only have one cold targeting spell and no cantrip, and you can do extra damage of that type. That would be fantastic. As far as the skills, all the charisma skills, quite a lot of the others in dex and wisdom as well. This is going to be a fun build. I guess you don't really have that many wisdom skills. I should delete that. Acrobatics, though. Okay, already on to our last character, which is another blaster caster. And this is going to be a human dragon keeper. Ancestry is not halfling, it is human. They are winter-touched human. Backstory of being a dragon keeper from the north. Just sounds cool. You get a little resistance to cold. And then for the ancestry feat, Dragon Spit, you can say you learned a thing or two from the dragons, and you get Electric Arc. The background, I'm going to go with Skyrider because, like, duh. Gives you catfall. It's just cool. Very thematic and appropriate for a dragon. No, here comes my cat. Hold on a second. The mic probably doesn't pick it up. She makes the smallest, cutest little crying sounds in the world, and it breaks my heart. All right, I have to do a quick cat break. Okay, cat break over. Anyway, we were talking about our dragon Skyrider here. Max charisma, and then dex and some int. I like the kind of mechanical plus magical plus arcana, so we're going to go with some intelligence for this particular build. The cantrips, phase bolt and telekinetic projectile. Phase bolt is great if there's cover, otherwise I'd go with telekinetic projectile. Warp step, know the way, and sigil due to being a traveling Skyrider. Just kind of makes sense, doesn't it? Spells, kinetic ram and gravitational pull. Fun spells, also very thematic for this particular build. The eidolon is, of course, the dragon eidolon, which has a breath weapon. That is part of what makes this a blaster caster is, typically the eidolon is a little bit more of a melee combatant, but with a breath weapon, you are getting some blasting abilities in your eidolon. The evolution feat, glider form, of course. I mean, why not? I should check. Oops. I guess I still had the wrong eidolon selected there. Sorry about that. Just change it to dragon. I mean, got to double check, but yeah, I don't think there's anything in the eidolon that actually lets it fly just by being a dragon eidolon. So the glider form is perfect for that. And then rounding things out for the skills, I did go with some of the intelligence-based skills here, like crafting and occultism and society. What do I think about this party? Okay, so first of all, you are going to have so many actions. Essentially 16 per turn rather than 12 for other parties. That is fantastic. You are going to be able to target, mostly because you're first blaster caster, but you are going to be able to target from almost any range and any damage type. You've got your eidolons who are primarily melee focused. You do have one somewhat melee focused summoner, and you have so many spells. You have some eidolons with this, breath weapon range ability, others that can do some elemental damage, others that hit really hard with different types of physical damage. You can do anything with this party. The bad, you are kind of low skills. That is because, everyone is charisma based, which, it's good for the professional, or the ambassador skills is what I meant to say. But then because you have no armor training, I kind of feel forced to put some dexterity onto every one of these builds just to make them a little survivable. So I don't have a super high intelligence. I do have one character that is high wisdom. There's just not a lot of skill training to go around. I will also say, I still feel this way about these sort of split builds, I guess I call them. Yes, you kind of have 8 characters rather than 4. But remember, you do share hit points, so it's still kind of 4. And they're each, I would kind of say, due to your fewer spell slots and due to an eidolon not being quite as big and hard-hitting as like a true martial build, you're almost like 8 level 0 characters, I would say, at level 1. So I'm just going to... And I do wonder if that is still worse than 4 level 1 characters. I kind of feel like it is. I really do. And that is because, of course, everyone Every +1 matters. But truly, when you are going up against something that is actually higher level than you, that is where you really start to notice those little +1s mattering. Against boss fights, they can't really do much, like at all, other than absorb some damage for you. But remember that your eidolon and you share hit points. So if the eidolon absorbs damage for you, well, you absorb that damage too. So it's I almost struggle to wonder what you would really be able to do with your eidolon in higher level encounters. I know this is a pretty popular class, and a lot of people will say it is actually their favorite. I think a lot of people like the role play, the fantasy of having this big, powerful magic creature that they're bonded with, which is understandable. I guess it's really appropriate. I interrupted this video to go pet my cat. Who am I to say don't have an animal companion when literally I stopped what I was doing to go rub a tummy. So if you are a summoner main, or it's one of your primaries, one of your favorites, let me know how you handle using that summoner effectively against higher level creatures. Am I just over imagining this because I've never played as one, or is it a real problem? I'm curious to hear. This is one party where I'm not sure. I feel like with previous parties, I kind of knew either before or after my build, this party's going to work, or no, this party's not really that viable. I'm not sure here. So let me know what you think, adventurers, and I will catch you next time.